Connecting that. Default, stream kit, normal latency, low latency. Ba-ba-ba. Then I want to do this. Okay. We should be live now.
Okay,
I'm gonna actually verify this time.
Oh yeah, let's find out. I suppose on this next episode of Dragon Ball Z. Oh, but yep, I heard you.
Can you hear you?
Yeah. Oh, but yep, I heard you. Ooh.
Can you hear you?
Okay,
oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, cool. All right. Sorry about that, guys. Welcome to the first, the second half of the first episode of the Forwards or Less podcast. Welcome back. This is my friend David. For anybody that was tuned in, which I don't think anybody was actually tuned in other than our two friends that we know mutually, so no big deal. You guys are important, but not that important. It's okay. David here is my friend and our first guest. Not pictured in the logo at all. I'm Sam, blue bearded logo on the right hand side. The red faced logo with the glasses on the left hand side. Justin, my co-host, is not able to make it with us today. So we got our first guest. This guest, my friend David. He's done a lot inside the college sphere, I would say, in the residence life department. He's an engineer working in transportation and process improvement type stuff and a little bit of logistics, kind of the salt and pepper of the engineering world, I'd say. And grew up on a farm and is now kind of transitioning to, I wouldn't say inner city life, but kind of somewhere between suburbia and inner city. So kind of an interesting take going from urban to, well, rural to urban, rather. So, yeah. So I'll try not to repeat ourselves, but David was an RA in the college that we go to, and so yeah. So back to this question. So with coming straight out of high school, was it interesting for you to have a ton of responsibility placed on your shoulders right out of the gate, becoming an RA and being responsible for people's safety and in general being kind of where the buck stops and where the blame falls when shenanigans go on inside a college dorm room? I can't imagine that that's a lot of fun.
It had its moments, but I don't know. Like, it's definitely one of those things. I think, like, at the time, it was good. Like, I don't think I would go back and change it. But like, I don't know if this makes sense, but I kind of, because I did start, right at the second semester of my freshman year, I kind of would say I didn't necessarily have like what some would say is the traditional college experience or whatever, just because there, it wasn't that role of responsibility, pretty much the entire time until I graduated. But it's not like a foreign thing. Like, I'm pretty confident and I'm okay with being in roles of responsibility, especially whenever it's a situation where it's like,
yeah, you definitely
hey, this is my job.
Strive for wanting responsibility like that.
Yeah, I suppose to a degree. Like, yes and no. Like, I do, but I don't. I think it's more like, I don't know. It's like with responsive. I'm trying to think how to phrase it. It's prioritizing different things. So it's like, okay, with extra responsibility, so like I'll say like in a management role, like you don't deal with as much like monotonous little BS things, but you also have extra responsibility of like ensuring like people are doing their jobs and like doing things successfully, yada yada yada. And sort of like the same argument behind like being an RA. So like being a college student, all you had to focus on, or like when you're just like a resident or whatever, you only have to focus on like getting good grades and not breaking the law and like eating and whatever. versus like an RA, you gotta make sure
pass.
that everybody else is doing all of that and more. You know, you gotta host events, you gotta be like, I don't know. Never mind, I won't say that. It's gonna be like, you have to be likable, but I'm like, I wasn't all that likable. I was like, okay, likable.
They put a huge
And
importance
then I knew
on that, though, being likable.
Oh, they do. Honestly, like I kind of my attitude towards with being an RA, it was like I don't like if you want to be chill, if we want to like if you want to talk or whatever, like I am like here, I'm there if you need me to. But also, I'm not gonna coddle you, and I'm not going to be like your best friend in the world. Like unless we just I don't know if we mesh like that, then cool. But like that is not my prerogative, and I'm not gonna let you get away with stuff just because we're friends, if that makes sense. Like that was like a big one for me because I'd had residents who were like I'd bust them for like one thing or another, and they're like, I thought we were chill, David, and I'm like, you know the rules, like you know I'm not gonna risk my ass for you. Like at this point, like yes, we can still play League, we can still play video games, we can still be chill, like come to events, like let's get pizza, or whatever, you know, board game night, like that's perfectly fine. But if you decide to be an idiot, that's not my responsibility. Like that's on you, bruh. You know, like and that's kind of like the attitude I took with like being an RA and just you know, in most of the things I'm like you know, yeah, I will try to be you know mild mannered and chill as much as possible. But if you push it or push it too far, you know, that's the point where I'm like, okay, now I have to like put on your big boy pants and do my job. And if you want to, you know, bitch about it, then like suck it up, Buttercup. Like that's just how life works.
So, do you think it was a good thing for you to do to prepare you for a real life management kind of scenario? Because I feel like being an RA is really, really, sometimes it feels like you're just a glorified babysitter. And that's to no fault of your own. That's kind of just how it goes with having a bunch of college kids that you're responsible for like that.
The fact that some of these folks, like story time for a second, the fact that some of these folks are considered grown. Do you know how many grown men? First of all, I do inform grown men. Well, you're talking like 18, 19, even 20, that they did in fact have to use soap when they showered.
Oh my gosh, that's disgusting.
That's disgusting.
Disgusting.
You know,
not to mention your first roommate, right?
It took me a second to figure out. Yeah, bless America. Although that was a fun situation. Like honestly, I did not Mike. I liked having Mike as a roommate. Honestly, if I could have continued to have Mike as a roommate, I totally would have. But I think part of that came with the fact that whenever he was being disgusting, I literally just took a picture of his room and texted it to his mom. And then 30 minutes later, she calls him and is like, clean your fucking room. So, like, it worked out really well. And that's, like, one of the benefits of being, you know, with your friends. But, you know, it's one of those things. But, yeah, no, like, that was probably the biggest annoyance is, like, you know, teaching some of these people, like, wait, how did you survive this many years without knowing these things? Like,
how
you know,
did
like
you
the shower
not die?
thing's a big one.
Yeah.
Listen.
Infection. Come on.
One of my first calls, like responses as an RA, was a dude who set his microwave on fire because he didn't know you couldn't put metal in a microwave. And I'm like, me and the cop were laughing our butts off at this dude. Because we're like, how did you get to 18 years of life and not know you couldn't put metal in a microwave? And like we literally like he like had to carry it outside because it was still like the fire was out obviously.
But he kept setting off the smoke alarm.
Yeah, like it set off the smoke alarm. He literally had to carry his like still smoking microwave outside so it could just like air out, you know. And I'm just like, I thought people knew this, and the dude was like, yeah, I did too. Like I thought this was common knowledge. And after that, it became just something I did especially when I was with freshmen. You know, I started putting in there like, don't forget you can't put metal in your microwave. Don't forget to wear deodorant and, you know, like shower because we're adults now and nobody wants to smell your stank.
So,
you know,
what about, I want to hear some horror stories coming out of Howl.
I mean, I didn't really I was a director over Howl, but Howl wasn't the worst. I mean, okay, so like I have some stories that some of my friends who are RAs have told me. So they're not technically
just for some context, though, Howell was one of the dorms that was kind of the cheapest bottom of the barrel dorms. Like, go ahead and you explain it. You'd do a better job at it.
Hull was a traditional style dorm, meaning like public bathrooms and you share a room with a roommate. So it wasn't inherently like I would say like if you think of like
it was an old ass building though.
Yeah, no. Well, it used to be a what am I thinking of? A barracks
in like the 1940s, right?
Yeah, it literally used to be a military barracks, and then they moved it to campus and turned it into a dorm.
I don't think they moved it to campus. I think campus purchased that
like
property.
Absorbed it,
yeah,
or whatever.
Where it was sitting.
Yeah, same same difference.
Yeah.
Same shit, different creek. But I think of some of the funny stories that honestly, like the stinky kids were like some of the worst people. And there's one dude that we were all familiar with him. We all called, like, I didn't actually know his name. I did know some facts about him though. He was a physics major, and we all called him Tie-Dye Pants Guy.
Oh yeah, I know Tie-Dye Pants Guy.
I was gonna say, you know Tie-Dye Pants Guy, but he stank. He apparently had a thing against showering. Yeah, one of my friends was apparently his roommate. And
in Howell?
Like, yes.
Okay.
In Howell, like, so you literally share a room with him. He's like, it's disgusting.
Dude, you got enough to worry about living in that. Like, you got enough to worry about what you're breathing in that building. Just living there,
right?
Like, much less your roommate being
like
a
18, 19-year-old
walking toxic waste factory. Oh yeah.
But
that
fits
the persona though.
It does,
doesn't it?
It really does.
That's nasty.
But yeah, no, and then, like people who like catch
microwaves
on fire.
Cordell was his roommate.
Wait, what?
Cord was his
Hold
roommate.
Up. Oh.
Wow. Okay.
Talk about small world, huh?
Rip.
Ripperoni in case he is. Cordell. But yeah, no, like maybe I'm thinking of somebody else. But yeah, moral of the story. I was aware that he definitely was he could be a stinky individual.
Maybe I'll have to get Cord on to talk about Tie-Dye Pants Guy one day.
Literally, just so like a quick short. Oh, in last week's episode, we talked about
Tie-Dye Pants Guy.
That guy.
Yeah.
Tie-Dye Pants Guy. But yeah, no, like it was what it was.
There's no doubt he was freeballing under there, you know?
I don't even want to imagine.
I mean, you can't wear pants that baggy and then
maybe for like reference for everybody, like we call him Tie-Dye Pants Guy because he literally did wear they were like tie-dye pants. We always saw him in the same pair.
They were like tie-dye. They're not parachute pants, but they're like these poofy baggy.
They're very similar.
They're
very similar to parachute.
They almost look like man jammies, almost. They're like they almost look like a Middle Eastern kind of pant, you know. Like if Aladdin wore tie-dye pants, that's what they would be. Very poofy.
Yeah, almost. I think honestly, I think they were a form of parachute pant, but they just weren't.
I think parachute pants like open up at the bottom, like almost like boot cuts do, and they're like that's what a parachute pant is.
Hold up, I think let me double check. Okay, I think they were like it's harem pants.
Haram pants. There you go.
Haram.
I knew they were Middle Eastern.
Yeah, something along that line. So he wore those.
And they were tie-dye.
And they were tie-dye. And like this guy was not Middle Eastern. He was like very white.
Yep.
Which was funny.
Very long hair. Didn't shower.
Yeah.
Modern hippie.
So moral of the Although I heard he was super smart though. I never actually interacted with him.
You kind of have to be if you're gonna continue to be a physics major.
True. I feel like there's a certain amount of suffering, like a certain amount of masochism that comes with that. You're just like, I want to be same thing with chemistry majors. I knew somebody who was a chemistry major, and I was like, listen, you're a special type of like masochist, are you? Because I barely passed Chem 1, and I hate.
I didn't.
Like that was
Chem
one of my worst classes. Like I just absolutely despised that so much.
Chemistry was the worst.
It really was. Back to RA stories though for a second. One of my friends, he got this was a Howell noise complaint as well. So he ended up getting a noise complaint, about people playing loud music. So he went to go investigate, went into Howell and he knocked on the door. And so the dude opens up the room, like the door, and then in the same dorm is another guy and his girlfriend going at it.
Oh no!
While the roommate was still in the room,
No!
just, like, playing on his computer. And so, like, they didn't stop either whenever, like, they opened the door to, like, and he was like, and he, like, kind of, like, backed away for a second. He's like, you have a second to, you know, step outside, you know, for a second, because he's like, I don't want to see that. And so he ended up, like, what did he say? And he, like, turned down the music. So, like, hey guys, I gotta turn down the music. And, like, talk to the couple, like, doing it. And they're like, oh, okay, and they turned it down because apparently they were blasting music to cover up the sound of them doing it. It's like you gotta turn down the volume off that one. Like you can't be this loud because people are complaining about noise. And I'm just like, can you imagine the balls it takes to sit there and do it with your roommate still in the room?
Bro, I never had, like, everybody, I've heard so many stories of people just banging in dorm rooms with other people in the room. It's like, what kind of
weird
animal are you that you don't care that somebody else is watching you like that, you know? That's weird. Now. That's weird to me, man. That's
different
weird.
Strokes for different folks, I guess. But
yeah,
I could not do it. I'm just like, that is too odd. Like, I don't know. It'd be very uncomfortable, especially when you think about that is probably somebody you have never met before. Like, this is your first time meeting this individual. And then, like, later, like, 3 months down the road, you're sitting there, like, and they're just listening to you and your girlfriend go at it. Like, that's
Heck
so
no,
weird.
Man. Heck no. I bet you that evolves over time for a lot of people like that. They're probably just having really shallow relationships at first. But I bet you, I have to have the hunch, otherwise I lose all faith in humanity, that the longer you go on in college and the more mature, because people mature up really quick in those 4 years of life, that kind of becomes less and less acceptable. Like, somebody's either got to put their foot down and be like, yo, that's not cool in front of me, like, get a room, or, you know, put a freaking sock on the door for, you know?
I'm like, literally, you could have gone to the lobby, but he just straight up didn't, which was the most mind-boggling thing for me.
For the guy that was just staying in the room, just gaming.
He was just in there. I was like, how? Like, that's probably the part that killed me the most. Like, first of all, like, it's too. I don't even want to think about it. Truth be told,
I could never do that. I visited my girlfriend at the time, now my fiance, in college a lot. Her freshman year, and she had that same style of dorms where it was a shared shower down the hallway. Or no. I think she had a shared shower in the suite. Mm-hmm. So it was kind of like what we were used to over in HV. And she had a roommate that would come in and out all the time as well. But I was always respectful of that, and like we would never even like make out or anything like that. Like, most we would do is top of the covers cuddling, you know, with her roommate in there. But even that was kind of weird and off-putting to her roommate, it would seem. That's nasty, dude. Who doesn't stop when you just walk into the room like that? Just don't care. Don't give.
It's super strange. It really is.
Single fuck.
I don't know. Like I said, different strokes for different folks, but I personally don't think I could ever do that.
Sounds like
because
the
it's
roommate
just
was
too
doing all the stroking.
Weird. Do what?
Nothing.
Get out. I feel like I picked up what you said, and a hearty fuck you in response. But yeah, no, it's just weird. And like, you hear about stuff like that happens all the time, and like literally the same like friend who was an RA, he got another. Apparently, he just had it out, like in this type of situation. But like, this was when there was still lofted beds as well. Mm-hmm. Because that got DX because people were falling. Well, actually, it's because a dude at Georgia Tech ended up falling off of his lofted bed, and he ended up becoming paralyzed.
Ooh.
Whenever like he fell out.
Oh, this was prior to us coming to.
No, this time together. They started removing them because the dude at Georgia Tech fell off of his lofted bed and was paralyzed for it. And so literally the entire university system of Georgia was pooling lofted beds and was not allowing lofted beds across the state of Georgia in public institutions, because we had to implement that as like RAs, and it was crazy because people were pissed that we were taking away their lofted bed. Which, I mean, granted, having a lofted bed was cool.
It made it
was
awful
like a safety
convenient.
thing.
I lived on the first floor and always pulled my bike inside and parked it underneath my lofted bed freshman year.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really convenient.
It was.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like a similar situation, but like somebody had apparently like fallen out of their bed or whatever
At
while they
another
were doing it with their
university.
significant other, and they
Oh,
broke
no.
their arm.
Oh,
Like
man.
it broke their arm, and so like literally they had to have an ambulance come and like take her to the hospital to get her arm reset.
Have you ever seen?
Because they fell out of the bed while doing it, and he was the RA that responded to
Oh
that
my
call as well.
gosh. Have you ever seen that show or heard of that show? Sex Sent Me to the ER.
Yes, I've heard of it. I haven't watched it, but oh my god, listen, there's some crazy stuff.
I gotta watch that show. I've heard some really, really weird stuff. And, like, some people are
Listen.
just, like, even, like, simple things like that. Some people are, I hit my head because I was getting plowed too hard or whatever. They're just so embarrassed about it and just, they'll straight up lie to
Right.
healthcare officials because they're ashamed of, I don't want people to know I have sex, It's kind of weird.
Right. It is. It's kind of a weird mentality, and also, I mean, what was it? It was like a YouTube video I was watching the other day. Actually, it was like, or maybe it was something on the internet. Moral of the story is like of a nurse, and he's like, I don't care, like that you're doing drugs or whatever, or like that you were doing this stupid thing. Like, I need to know what you're on, so that I can treat you. Because if you did like insert random drug here, and I give you this. For queasiness,
You die.
it could rupture your heart. So, like, I'm not trying to bust you as a cop. Like, I'm not a cop. I'm not trying to bust you for that. Like, I need you to be an adult, or whatever. So
Man.
it's one of those things.
That's wild to me. I've seen that a lot on watching arrest videos and stuff like that. People will just straight up, as soon as they get pulled over, they'll just swallow the evidence. And it's like, dude, I need you
crazy.
to tell
And then
me
you go into,
what
like,
you
a
took
bad
and how
trip
much
and-
you took, because you're gonna die
So
if
you
you don't.
die.
Right.
Yeah.
And they just think that they're constantly out to get them, but it's like public safety number one.
Yeah.
You don't want to hurt the person that you're trying to help.
Yeah.
For
I don't
sure.
know.
That's wild
It's
to me.
crazy.
And it just blows my mind that they see what those drugs do to them in small quantities, and then they would go and like do something irrational, like swallow the whole, like, just a lot of cocaine.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of fear there with that too. I mean,
or
you gotta
marijuana
think,
too. They'll like straight up
Yeah.
just eat the marijuana bag.
right?
Man.
Oh god.
Ugh. I can't imagine that tastes good.
Imagine being in Colorado, cop pulls you over, just eat the entire like thing of pot brownies or whatever, and then you're just like,
Fuck off! It's just kale chips.
oh grief, yeah, no, that would be what a life.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's crazy. It really, truly is.
So, we'll just switch gears here, I guess. So, what kind of stuff do you want to grow when you get a house? Assuming you just get like a regular old house.
What a freaking transition. We're sitting there like, pot brownies, and you're like, what would you like to grow, David? Like, get out of here. Like, I'm assuming you're talking
Vegetables
about,
and fruits and stuff like that. Yeah.
yeah.
Like, do you want to have a garden if you live like in a suburban neighborhood?
Maybe, honestly, like, I think I do, but nothing big. Like, maybe like an above ground garden, but like, or like a 5x5 something, not like a like a field or whatever, but like a little something, something like I can have like on my patio in this little thing where I can plant like, potatoes or greens, or like maybe like 2 or 3 stalks of corn or something, like just enough to like like snack on or something, and also just like occupy my time. I feel like once I get closer to retirement, I'll like go back to that stage of my life, honestly, because like that was a big part of my like life growing up. Like I literally straight up, like you mentioned earlier, but I literally straight up grew up on a farm, like waking up at 4 in the morning, and going and picking corn from 4 until 9 in a field.
Got to get up
and
before the
then
heat gets
or
going.
it was like, it wasn't quite 9. It was like 4 to like 8.
Mhm.
And then spending 8 to and then we like stopped for breakfast, and then from like 8:30 or like 9 o'clock to like 10 or 11, we were shucking corn, and then, you know, everybody else in the house, you know, like the adults were cooking the corn and jarring it and like bagging it up, whatnot. After that, like that's how I remember like spending my summers, or like picking like okra or squash or zucchini, and that's where my deep-seated of watermelon, like my deep-seated hatred for watermelon developed, because when you plant an entire freaking orchard of watermelon and you like fertilize them, cover them with straw, you know, water them every day and like 95-degree Georgia weather, and you're sitting there baking your balls off an entire summer, and then you don't even get that many good melons out of it. It is incredibly disheartening. And you just kind of get tired of them. And now I kind of like, every time I see a watermelon, I just kind of like glare at them because I'm like, I know what you are and I hate you.
They taste good,
how
though.
much time? I mean, they're good. Like, I like watermelon. Don't get me wrong, I'll eat them. But also, like, the amount of time and effort that I put into that
Fruit.
watermelon patch just for it to literally not turn up like any good results was just very disheartening. And I was like, I don't know. The cucumbers did better than the what I keep wanting to say, pumpkins, than the watermelons. And I didn't even care about the cucumbers. Like, I barely spent any time on them. Like, I literally had like, you know, cucumbers and watermelons. They were like in the same, because they're like all in the melon group. And so they're all in the same field because you got to watch like the nitrogen levels, and whatnot. So you have to like rotate what you grow in certain fields, so that, because like certain crops will like suck the nitrogen and other like nutrients out of the soil, and so that are required for like insert like whatever plant it is. So like usually you can't plant like, well, I'll say usually, but like in our case we didn't, unless you want to put like a bunch of lime and like nitrogen and stuff to like replenish that soil. Once you've gotten the harvest, you plow it under, and then like the next season or like the next growing period, you don't grow the exact same thing in that exact same spot, because you want to give the time, like the ground time to like sort of recoup its nutrients. So instead you grow something else that requires different nutrients. So like we would have like one field, like this section would be like pole beans or whatever, or like, you know, squash or tomatoes, and then the next one over would be a corn, and then like the following season, you know, we would have like the corn was where the like the squash and stuff were, and then, you know, where the corn was last year, that's where the squash would be, and we would rotate different fields just to make sure like the nutrient levels were where they need to be. Because if you try to like, you can do it through like going and buying, you know, like lime and other things to like fix the nutrient levels, but that gets expensive. But if you just like plow stuff under and kind of let nature do its thing, it will eventually like recoup, and that's why you have to like rotate crops. And like it obviously also depends on your soil quality, because like sometimes like we were able to do like multiple years in like one spot where we didn't have any adverse effects, but then like you started seeing like a slower turnover the next year, and so we're like, okay, like time to move on to like a different area or whatever. And like that's something like just kind of like picked up from my grandfather, and just like different. I know more about vegetables than I care to at this point, now that I think about it.
So do you think you'll have a small vegetable garden or anything in your own home?
I think I will. Like, I don't know. I think I will.
Like
once
onions are pretty
retire.
easy to grow, right? Onions and tomatoes, and like we did tomatoes off of our back porch once in one of those raised planters that we talked about.
Yeah.
And we did them just off the back deck, and they grew like crazy, really, really
like
well.
Those topsy-turvy things. You
They
remember seeing that
yeah,
for a while?
Yeah. I think those were them, and we had like softball-sized tomatoes growing. It was insane for a whole summer, and we had so many. Towards the end of the season, we had so many that we took as many as we wanted, gave a whole bunch away, and still had like a whole basket worth of tomatoes to do something with. And I was like, what the hell do I do with all these tomatoes? So I made salsa, and it was really, really good. Best homemade salsa recipe I've ever done. So tomatoes and onions would be pretty easy, right? Are onions pretty easy to grow?
They're root vegetables. I'll be honest. We didn't grow onions, so like I know next to nothing about onions. Like I feel like it can't be that difficult. Like I've seen like, you know, YouTube videos about like, oh, you can grow it on yada yada. But I don't actually know how to do onions. Like this type of stuff we grew,
Well, we have those like little onions that grow wild even
Okay,
around here,
well,
right?
okay, those are green. Okay, so like whenever I think onion, I think of a Valdelia onion, or like a white onion, not a green onion, like the little stalk, like chives. They're essentially, people call them the same thing. So yeah, we did grow some of those, and so those aren't too. Honestly, they aren't difficult. Like you kind of just let them do their own thing. Same thing with garlic. Garlic just kind of goes, and
Really?
you just let it do its own thing. Garlic is super easy. Like literally, you plant like one clove, and like you can split it off, and then it just kind of it goes for it. It just does its thing, and then you got like a whole bushel of garlic growing in one spot, literally, and it's very hardy. Like certain plants are way hardier than others. So like squash is. Let me rephrase that. Squash can be hardy. Like yellow and straight neck squash can be very hardy, unless there are certain issues with either the soil or pests. Because there's goodness, what am I trying to think of? My train of thought just went out the window. I know what I'm thinking of. It's essentially it's a type of worm that gets into the stalk and it like eats its way into the root system,
Almost
and
like
it just kills the whole plant.
what's that worm? Like ringworm?
No, it's not a ringworm. Um, Goodness. It's gonna bug me because I know exactly. I can literally see it. Because I just remember like calling it's like squash bugs, but there's another name for them. Like, and I'm literally like I pulled up the picture, and that's exactly the bug that I've seen on them before. um,
They call them vine
what is it?
borers.
Vine borer. That's what it is. A borer. Um, uh, yeah, no, they're gnarly critters, and they can definitely get in there, and they can ruin a bunch of squash. Um, Honestly, I kind of have a hatred for squash, so like good riddance to the stuff. Um, Once you eat, literally, I remember growing up, like we had such a huge harvest. Like we would sell, squash and like different fruits, like different veggies, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Like at our local farmers market, whatever we didn't put away, or whatever the family or we didn't give away or whatever. Like we sold some as well, and it got to such a point where we had so much squash, we literally had it 3 meals a day.
That's a lot of
Like literally,
squash. That's
squash
too much.
muffins at breakfast.
Squash muffins. What are squash
casserole.
muffins?
Okay, so like like a banana muffin.
Yeah.
You kind of same concept. Like honestly, they aren't bad, all things considered. Like instead of using like a banana or like zucchini bread, like you've heard of zucchini bread, right?
Yeah, I think I've heard of it before. I don't think I've ever had it though.
So it's the same concept though. You can make bread out of zucchini. You can also squash muffins, same concept. You just instead of doing a bread, you do a muffin. And then so like literally we'd have like squash. We also grew zucchini, so we did zucchini bread too. But like that for breakfast, and then we would have like boiled squash or whatever, like steamed squash or whatever for dinner, along with like mac and cheese or whatever. And then squash casserole for dinner, and literally that was like multiple times a week, and I got so sick and tired of squash. Like I hate squash now. Like
What kind of
I look at squash.
was it? Like yellow squash?
Yeah, yellow straight neck squash.
That's good stuff these days, though. I'll do a little bit of squash, onions, olive oil, and some Italian seasoning. It's pretty good.
Yeah, everybody says that.
So,
But
so is squash going in your garden since you know how to grow it? Then
it will
and
not.
it's easy.
Nope.
Enough is enough, huh?
Listen, the only thing I would realistically like, I mean, herbs, no big deal. Most of the stuff I grew up, honestly, I don't know if I would grow because like there's like a either I didn't love it or it was just like a lot of work. So like
Too much
I mean,
maintenance
corn,
going into
I
it.
like
Yeah.
I like corn. Corn I would probably do if I had the space for it. Maybe like bush beans or pole beans. I personally prefer.
I heard
call it Tennessee cut short pole beans.
I heard with
They're really
corn,
good.
I heard somewhere once that corn you have to make at least like 3 rows or something like that of
Yeah,
corn.
because
Like
you have
can't
to
just
make
do
sure
a
it
single stalk.
cross-pollinates.
Okay. So that takes up a good chunk
Yeah.
of your yard if you don't have much of a yard to speak of in the first place.
Yeah. Plus, you also I mean, there's a lot that goes into. At this point, I'm just talking agriculture. What a life. But like when you grow it in a field, if you're growing like small, like I don't know if you've ever seen like people that are like, oh, I'm growing corn, and they grow like 4 stalks of corn, like 2 stalks of corn, and then literally a week later, like it rains, and then like all the stalks of corn are broken. The reason is for like the reasoning for that is corn stalks are not that hardy. Like they're not like I'd almost equate it to like cartilage almost as far as like it has some bend to it, but like if I just like I can karate chop a corn stalk and it falls to the ground, like that equivalent type thing. Um, and so by growing it in like mass, the inside corn is kind of like they'll support each other against like high gusts of wind. So like a few on the edge might tip over or they might break, but overall like the ones in the middle will be perfect. They won't fall, they won't break, and they will produce a lot of corn. Or the ones that do fall or lean, they're leaning on other corn stalks, and so they're kind of supported.
Sounds almost
sense.
like
But
like penguins, almost like why they huddle is because
yeah,
it's better
so,
for the whole.
yeah. That's actually a really good comparison. I wouldn't have even thought about that. But yeah, no. So like the same concept between that, like with corn. So like I would probably do like a little bit of corn in that sense. I really don't. I'm not a huge fan of tomatoes, so I probably wouldn't go tomatoes, even though I know how to. Same thing with zucchini and squash. I'm not really a fan. Like I've had my fill of zucchini and squash. Like I'll have them. Like if somebody cooks zucchini and squash, I'll eat them, but I will never, of my own volition, cook or eat squash. Because it's just no, too many squash dishes, too many zucchini dishes. Unless it's in like a zucchini bread, then it's acceptable.
So get this. I haven't talked to you guys in a while. Before we get too far away from corn, so there's like a lot of corn in Nebraska. I wonder how hardy it is for this. We had the other day a storm with no shit, and this was recorded somewhere in Omaha. My coworker told me about it. 93-mile-an-hour winds in a thunderstorm at night with rain and just wind, and there was not a tornado in sight. And I wonder how much corn was lost to 93-mile-an-hour winds. Dude, that'll lay down trees.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. We had like a mile worth of backed up for like a mile on either side of this intersection, and I'm pretty new to the area, so it must have been leading to a dump or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
For a straight mile, we had pickup trucks, nothing but pickup trucks, just loaded to the brim with tree branches, lined up, just almost parked, waiting to just turn at this one intersection the next morning.
Yeah.
That was terrifying for me a little bit.
Yeah.
I was kind of scared, but then like at the same time I was like, well, I'm new to the area. This is probably normal here, so better get used to it. This isn't abnormal,
Right. I don't know. The weather has been weird this year, though.
Yeah. Tornado coming through our hometown here. That was pretty wild.
And also look at the Pacific Northwest, like literally like up in like Seattle,
shitloads
Washington,
of fires.
like, Canada. Not even fires. Have you seen the temperatures? Like, what was it? It's like a month ago now. Like literally, people.
Yeah, it's peaked over like 103.
It's like it was like 103 in like freaking Canada, and I'm just like, what the heck? And like, because that's like a temperate environment. Like most people don't have air conditions in that area. Like, sort of how like Colorado is. Most people don't have air conditioning because it doesn't really get that hot. Like, it's enough if you have like a small fan or maybe like a small like personal unit to keep you cool. But like we've been seeing such an increase in like the weird weather and the increased heat. Like now people are like, oh crap, I need air condition. And like people are like comparing like, oh, people and like we're used to heat. It gets hot in Georgia. It gets hot in the Southeast.
You couldn't do without air conditioning here because it would just mold like mad anyways. You have to have climate control in an environment this humid.
It would mold like crazy, and also you would drop. Like you can't survive that type of heat without air conditioning. Because I mean, I remember a few years ago, like it was a huge, like we were going through a huge heat wave. Like, it was a big push, and it was like keep the elderly inside. Like, they will not survive this heat. Like, keep them in air condition. Like, people were like having to like move like the elderly from like certain retirement homes because their air conditioner broke, and they're like, we have to get our, senior citizens out of here, otherwise they will not make it in this type of heat. But like, so like that type of thing was happening in the Pacific North West, but like these people straight up didn't have air condition because like they don't need it. And so like that's the crazy part, like if you're having 100-degree heat, but you don't have an air condition.
Yeah.
Like how insane is that?
It's like infrastructure on a much smaller level.
Yeah.
And they just
like
lack it.
Baking.
Yeah. That sucks. So.
Well, it's just because they've never needed it up until this point, but now I'm sure a lot of people are going to start getting air conditions. Like I remember, like when all that was happening, because like it came up like it was an impact at work too. But I remember reading like an article, like people is like a Ask Reddit thing. Is like people in the Pacific Northwest, like how are you holding up? And like I remember one post stuck out to me as like, it's 96 degrees in my apartment right now, but I can't go anywhere because I have like some betta fish and another type of fish, and they're like, if I leave my apartment for a cooler place, my fish will boil alive. So I'm having to put ice in their tank to keep the water cool enough so that they'll survive. They're like, this is hell, but I'm not going to lose my buddies. And I'm like, that's so disheartening. Like, that's so sad. But also, like, good on you as, like, a pet owner. Like, you love to see that. But also, it sucks that, like, you were even in that, and, like, type of situation. Like, you're suffering, but at least you're keeping your pets safe, which is good.
Yeah. I don't know. Despite all the weather that I don't know, I'm probably going to take a crack at least growing a small herb garden. Herb garden?
Herb.
Not yeah, I'm not going to grow a whole bunch of guys named Herb in the backyard there.
Nice little bald spot on them.
Yeah.
That's how you know they're ready.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think I'm going to grow maybe some like oregano and basil, and I don't want to grow dill because Cordell had such an easy time growing dill. He had so much dill. It was just too, like, his whole apartment smelled like dill.
There's certain herbs that, like, are very, I don't know if this makes sense, but they're very hardy in the sense that, like, when they are in the right environment, they grow, and getting them to stop is the trick. Like, it's not an herb, but it might as well be, but it's like the same, it's like floral thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a lemon bush that I have back home. I love the smell of it. It literally smells like fresh lemon. Like, you know how like that smell like of just like freshly cut, or like, if you smell like a freshly sliced lemon or whatever, like sweet citrusy smell, and it smells really nice. So this lemon bush smells just like that, but plot twist, they grow like freaking kudzu. And so, like, I just made the mistake of just, like, what's it? It's lemon palm. Yeah, it's called lemon palm. Or lemon. Yeah, it's lemon palm, I believe. It's super it smells amazing. I love it. But if you don't keep it in a pot, which I did not, and it literally took over half of our yard at one point, and it got to such a degree I literally just went out there with the lawnmower and just started mowing over it. And it still grew back the next year, and like literally had to like straight up Roundup to get the stuff to kill, like to die. I'm like, you're like kudzu. And then like my grandmother was like, oh, I love this smell and I love how pretty it looks. Like, can I have some? I'm like, yes, but keep it contained. And then plot twist, half her flower bed now is lemon palm or lemon balm.
It looks really pretty though.
It is. It's very pretty and it smells amazing. Like I said, it smells straight up like lemon, and I absolutely love it.
Looks like that's what they make like potpourri and stuff like that out of.
Yeah, I feel like they definitely probably do now that you've mentioned that. But yeah, no, it's really nice. I would totally get some again, but I would keep it in like an actual potted plant, or like an actual pot, and not let it grow free. It's kind of like how cactuses are. Like if you what's the old saying? Give them an inch, they'll take a mile. That's how cactus are too. Um, if you keep a cactus potted, it will never outgrow its environment. Like that's how cactuses are. But if you like just plant it in the ground, it will grow, and it will spread out, and then all of a sudden you got cactus popping up everywhere. At least like this little cactus that I had at home was like that.
It's kind of wild that there are certain species of cactus that'll grow even in such a wet, humid environment like this. You would think it would drown it.
Yeah, you'd think. Although it came up with a super pretty cactus flowers, like I did love that plant. It's like my personal cactus, it's like my rescue cactus.
Yeah.
It's like I want to call it. Plants are weird. They're resilient. And then there's other things where it's like, I don't know, it reminds me of like that meme. It's like a picture of Daisy. It's like, if I get more than like 3 hours of sunlight, I die. And then it was like a dandelion. It's like snorting. It was like a picture of a dandelion snorting a line. It's like, I grow in concrete and fuck your Roundup. And I'm like, that's pretty accurate. Like that's exactly how that works. But yeah.
Yep. What a word, dandelion. Like it's tough.
Dandelion.
Like lions are tough, but dandy is like totally not.
Well, I mean,
and they're kind of that way.
Weed, it's pretty.
Well, they're kind of that way in life too. Is like they're weak, so much so that you could just blow on them and they'll scatter and just fall to pieces. But they'll grow just about anywhere, and they're hard like that.
Do you want me to, kind of destroy your soul for a second?
Go on.
So when dandelions have like stages of life. So whenever they're in that, I would say I want to call it like their roly-poly stage of life, where you can pick up the dandelion and blow. On it and they scatter.
Mm-hmm. When they get interesting.
Yeah, you essentially just got off a plant.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
You just gave a plant a blowjob. That's what you did. I want you to think about that. I want you to dwell on that.
Yeah, you just scattered plant's seed, literally.
Literally. No, like 100%.
By blowing
That's
it.
what happened. By blowing it. I mean, same thing. Listen, when you...
I mean, when you're wiping pollen off your car, next time you're wiping pollen off your car, we have really bad, just yellow coating.
Pollen.
Yeah, pollen season is really bad in the southeast. And next time you're just cleaning that off of your car, or giving your car a car wash, next time you walk out and you see like your car just covered in a yellow tinge, all plant jizz.
Yeah, literally just think about it, like, all these pine trees just bust a fat nut on my car.
And they just kind of like, into the air, You breathe it. Breathing plant nut.
Ew, gross. It's disgusting. It's not entirely inaccurate, though, and that's probably the worst thing.
Yeah. Well, they don't have a conscience or anything like that, so it's not, inherently sexual or anything, so not a big deal.
Listen... I don't know about you, but pollen definitely fucks my sinuses.
I'm pretty good about it. I don't have any problems with it at all. But that can be kind of weird moving to a new place. You never know what might hit. We have this dude. So I've been wondering this the whole time that I've moved way out there, out in the Midwest. There's like this it almost looks like dandelion pieces. It looks like little bits of fuzz, like off of somebody's jacket or something like that, just kind of floating in the air. And there's tons of it all over the place. And it just kind of blows in the breeze and floats around and stuff like that. Well, I asked somebody what it was, but I was almost afraid to ask because you kind of look like you peg yourself as an outsider that way. Apparently it's a cottonwood tree, like seeds. They fall off the trees and they just kind of float around in the air and stuff like that. And now that you mentioned it, it does look like straight up cotton floating in the air. Yeah. It's really interesting and kind of pretty in a way.
That's super interesting, actually.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting how, like, different I mean, there's so many different like climate areas and like different
Biomes
unique
and
environment.
yeah.
Yeah, biomes. That's the word I was looking for. Like it's freaking Minecraft. Around though, like the U.S.
Different
specifically, because I mean, like literally,
ecosystems, if you want to sound more mature, right?
there we go. I like that better. But like, no, when you think about it, like we literally have a temperate rainforest in the United States. There's like basically an actual rainforest in,
Northern
Hawaii.
and
Um,
Tennessee is technically a rainforest. The Smoky Mountains,
yeah, but that's more of like a temperate rainforest. Um,
still a
and
rainforest.
then like we have a desert, we have plains, we have mountains, we have coastal, we
It's a
have
beautiful
like
country to
river
be in.
basins. We've got like Alaska is like basically tundra.
Alaska's
Like
got a little bit
certain
of
parts of
everything too, you
Alaska.
know.
Alaska's got listen. Alaska don't know what it is. Although I've heard Alaska's super pretty, and I do want to go there one day, but I don't know. I have a big aversion to the cold, and so like that just seems very up north for me
Springtime,
to exist.
springtime in Alaska is apparently really, really buggy. Like just mosquitoes like floating,
Yeah,
like you could breathe them in. They're so thick.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
But I've also heard it's like super like at the right time of year, it's super nice. It's super just like it's like I literally the people I know a family who like they lived here in Georgia. Is like one of my childhood friends, like his grandparents. They like literally lived like in Georgia their entire life, and then they end up going to Alaska, and now they spend their summers in Alaska. Like they visited Alaska once, and they got a second house in Alaska, and they travel to
Land
Alaska
is so cheap.
and
It's got to be
stay in
cheap,
Alaska at least
right?
half the year.
I would think land is like really, really cheap there, but it's hard.
I,
From what I see, it's really hard to keep up infrastructure there on a seasonal basis because it's so
yeah.
humid there that everything just
Mm,
molds like crazy when you're gone.
interesting.
Even while you're there,
Interesting.
it's a very, very wet environment.
Interesting.
But it looks really pretty, you know.
Yeah, I was about to say, I mean, I see pictures of it. Like, honestly, I feel like I would love to do, like, like a trip up to Alaska and just kind of, like, look and see what it has to offer. Like, travel around, just see, honestly, different parts of the United States. Just see what it all has to offer and kind of just experience it. Uh, but, that's
I'd like to get
neither
into
here nor
more
there.
like wilderness camping to be able to see places that people don't often get to go.
Mm-hmm.
Either that
That's fair.
or get into hunting just for that reason, just to kind of explore the land and have an excuse to go and do that. I've been watching a lot of this show called Meat Eater that's
Mm-hmm.
big into hunting and stuff.
Let me guess, they eat meat.
Well, he eats an exclusively, like, he eats like grocery store veggies and stuff like that, but all of his meat
Yeah,
intake is from wild game.
that's super interesting.
Yeah. You think you could ever get into hunting?
I've hunted before. I don't mind it. Honestly, my biggest issue, I have three big issues, I would say. First of all, hunting takes a lot of patience. I'm too ADH, like I'm too ADD for that
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like just sitting still in a deer stand for 6 hours, like that's a lot. Second of all, price of ammunition, no thanks.
Yeah, right
Third of
now.
all,
You ain't kidding.
cleaning. Have you ever had the displeasure of smelling a popped deer stomach?
Oh, don't do that. Just don't pop it.
Obviously, but if you have ever
That's got to be
had the
nasty.
displeasure,
Nasty,
it
man.
was genuinely. I think that is still the worst smell I have ever smelt in my life.
Dude, you're not only are you getting like
It's like
unprocessed foods and stuff like that, but you're also getting like stomach acid.
stomach
Straight
acid,
stomach
bile,
acid.
gas, like different gas. It's ugh. It was disgusting. Um, but like the whole process of like I literally would sit there like sit at the dining room table and watch my grandfather clean deer. Like that's something like I'm very familiar with, but at the same time, can I personally see myself doing that? I don't think so because that's a lot of work, and also it's messy and it's kind of gross.
You know, it's
and
kind of
it's just not my
surprising how
cup of
not
tea.
so gross it can be butchering an
I mean,
animal.
yeah, no, like
Like once you
I
once
don't
you
disagree.
once you gut it like that and drain the blood out and wash the insides out, that's
That's the big part.
yeah, like the gut
That's
area
the
is
part
where
I
all
don't
the
want to
blood
do.
is too.
No, like 100%. That's where it is. But it's that you can't like jump from point A to point B. So like if I could theoretically, like, and I've done it before, like, cut up, like a flank of a deer leg or whatever, and then like we turn it into like deer burgers and stuff like that. I'm comfortable with that. Like deer steaks, like I grew up on that type of stuff. But like the process of like actually like skinning it, gutting it, cleaning it, like draining the blood, that's a whole process, and it is not a clean process, and it is pretty gross. Um, but also like to pay like a butcher to do that, it's not cheap.
No, usually they
It
take a little
really
little
is.
bit of it for themselves too.
Yeah,
As much as they charge, they're still
yeah,
like straight up. They don't even put that in like a contract or
no,
purchase agreement or anything. They'll just take a little bit of your meat for their sausage pile or something like that.
yeah.
So their cuts are
Which
really
honestly,
heavy
like,
handed and stuff like that. I think it would be really important to learn how to do all that yourself if you're going to get into
yeah,
it. I'm really
no,
really thinking about getting into it. Um,
it's a lot.
yeah,
I mean, I'd say like some people have the stomach for it. I don't know if I do. Like I know enough about it, to be able to do it, if that makes sense. Like
mhm.
I've seen it done enough times to where I, with confidence, would have a pretty okay idea of what to do. But do I think I ever want to put myself in that place voluntarily? Don't think so.
Yeah. I think it'd be a good.
I'd rather,
I think hunting would be a good social occasion though,
yeah,
to go
maybe.
spend some time with people you care about.
True. I mean, at that point, I might as well go. Like, if I'm gonna do something outdoorsy, like a long, like if it has, if there has to be a death of an animal involved, I think I would just prefer going fishing because I do really like fishing, actually.
I can't fish. I'm not.
Really?
Yeah, that's where my patience ends. Like at least with hunting, I'm engaged and I
Really?
can see what's going on. I would think. Um, I've only gone hunting twice in my life, and at the time I talked way too much, and I would just spook everything off.
Everything
Right.
away.
Um, but fishing, the only kind of fishing I can do is topwater fishing, which is where you kind of just do a lure that looks very flashy and things like that, and particularly with
Yeah.
bass. It just, yeah,
Bass
you
and
skip it over the
catfish,
surface and you make a lot of like
crappie.
noise, and they come up and they just get pissed off about it, and they come up and they smack it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you set the hook when they smack it. So you'll pull fish in like backwards, pull them in by the tail, by the fin, anything
Mm-hmm.
but the mouth because they're not intending on eating it. But it's a lot more fast paced than regular
Yeah.
fishing. I can't do regular fishing. I just don't have the patience for it.
See, I
And you
don't
can't
mind
see
just sitting
what's under
there
the
dropping a
water.
bobber and just wait
Yeah,
for the brim to hit. Like I don't mind that.
it seems to
Um,
take a lot more skill than what I have to, and like knowledge of the environment to do well, to know where to find the
True.
fish.
I was about to say that's a big one. Like you do need to know, because like different fish are in different. Like there was a pond that me and my grandfather always went fishing. It was like one of his neighbor's ponds, but like I could tell you exactly where each fish or each type of fish, because there was like 4 or 5 different type of fish in that lake, and there was brim, there was crappie, whatever you want to call them. I know two people pronounce it different ways.
Too many
Bass
more.
and catfish. And so I could tell you exactly. Like there was a stump. It was like two. Like you had a really long cast for it. Um, but you could get a catfish or a big bass around that stump almost every time. Same thing with underbrush. That's usually where like the bass were. The brim, they like to sit front and center around the what am I thinking of? In front of the dock, and then down over near the dam. That's where you could get sort of a combination of either the crappie or the bass,
You ever had?
but usually very
You ever
rare on
caught
anything
carp?
else. I haven't actually.
I don't think you can eat those very well. They're kind of a bottom feeder
They're bony fish from what I've
and
heard.
gross. I heard
Yeah,
they don't taste very good.
it's like same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like they're well, from what I've heard, like carp are very like they're bony fish, sort of how sturgeons are. Like they're bottom feeders,
Hmm.
so they don't taste very good. And kind of catfish to a degree, I should say. Like they're bottom feeders and they're not that great. Although some people love catfish. Personally, I don't like any type of fish. Um, like if I was to eat fish, it would probably be brim or bass, just because that's what I grew up of, and I built like I don't know a tolerance for it.
Mhm.
But like I never once in my life have ever been like I really want some fish right now, or I'm really craving some fish. Like that has never ever crossed my mind or like vocal cords. But I don't mind the act of fishing.
Never crossed,
Even cleaning
never
fish, I don't
crossed
mind.
my vocal cords. That's interesting. I like that. I'm gonna
Listen,
use that. All right.
okay,
Well, I think we're gonna be calling it for now. On the
sounds good.
podcast.
Sounds good. Sounds
It's been
good.
good having you on. Thanks for being my stand-in co-host today.
Yeah, it's no problemo, no problemo.
Yeah.
Well, I
Do you
guess I will talk.
wanna use the opportunity? You can shout out your Twitch channel if you want.
Oh yeah, go watch my Twitch channel.
What's it called?
I don't want to say it now. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you can check me out also on YouTube. It's David Senpai, Senpi. On YouTube, also same on Twitch. I do like gaming related stuff. Right now, I'm in the middle of a Pokemon Nuzlocke series, for Pokemon Emerald. It's a lot of fun, but also it's really hard, and I'm kind of disheartened about some of the deaths on my team. But I will get there. Although I'm not streaming this week because I got too much happening.
Yeah,
So
same.
maybe next
Yeah.
week.
Speaking of which, next week I don't think we're gonna have a podcast on forwards or less. We may do a similar kind of situation if I can talk Justin into it on having a guest stand in as me, as a co-host if he can handle it. But there's a high chance that we won't be doing a podcast next week. But again, tune in around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is usually when we try to go live for the podcast. So thanks for tuning in. If you're still listening, hit that like button, and thanks for sticking with us. I don't know what else to say. I never know what to say.
Well, here I'll use my outro that I use for my channel. Thank you so much for watching. Wherever you are, I hope you have a great night, a great evening, great morning, whatever it is where you are. And as always, I hope you guys continue to game on.
Game on.
Game on.
Ooh. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Subscribe, like, all that sellout stuff. Share it with a friend, more importantly. If you like the podcast, share it with a friend. Mention it to somebody. Shoot them a link to the channel. And thanks for moving forwards or sometimes less. All right. Have a good one, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.